Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Patriot Coalition's Nation on Fire webinar. If you cannot hear us, please look at the icon with the phone on your computer. Click on that. It will give you a phone number to call. You need to access this phone number either by your phone or computer in order to hear the audio portion of it. You can get a hold of all kinds of things, including listen to this again, this presentation, and many, many others at our multitude of social media sites and our website, patriotcoalition.com. We have several Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, and YouTube. Hopefully you will access more and more information from those. The last time we did the show, we did it about the PSYOPs war, where we went through the fact that Americans are being played like a cheap fiddle, perhaps the one Nero plucked while Rome burned. This was part of our America's 11th Hour series. You can find that archived at patriotcoalition.com/radio-shows. And you can find a multitude of other shows that have been archived there. Tonight's show is going to be about H.R. 1041, the Jamiel Shaw II Memorial Act of 2015. This is the 5th Congress that Fire Coalition has had this bill introduced. The original, some of you might remember it from its original title, the Illegal Alien Crime Reporting Act. So we have started off actually with a great bang this go round, and we're really excited. So we want to be able to share with everybody what this bill is about, how to talk to your representative about it, and talk to you about the bipartisan support we've already seen. And just in case you don't know who I am, I'm Dawn Wildman, Deputy Director for Fire Coalition and the National Political Director for the Patriot Coalition.
I was about to beat you up over that, Dawn.
Yeah, I always forget.
My name's Jeff Lewis. I'm the co-founder and National Director of Patriot Coalition, and which we launched in 2009. And I've been the National Director of Fire Coalition since 2007. And Fire Coalition and Patriot Coalition, we've rolled those two organizations into one under the Patriot Coalition banner. Fire Coalition is a division of Patriot Coalition. Fire Coalition is more focused on specific issues, whereas with our projects and efforts at Patriot Coalition, we address all sorts of constitutional issues.
I also want to just take a moment to make a quick housekeeping note that there is a chat window up at the top of your screen. You'll see the phone icon and then the little blurb icon.
Yeah, I can pop that. It's right here.
Yeah. That opens up the chat window. So if you have a question or you want a clarification or anything like that, I'll be looking at that all night.
All right, I'm going to skip down a little bit. We referenced that this was the 5th Congress that we've had this introduced. The first 3, it was branded, named, the short title was the Illegal Alien Crime Reporting Act. And one of the things that we saw happen in our travels to D.C. is that the illegal alien sympathizers and the DREAM Act kids and their supporters, that the members of Congress's offices and the hearings were being flooded with sob stories about the plight of the poor illegal alien. And there was very little emphasis being put on the victims of illegal alien crime, the American citizens, the legal immigrants, lawful permanent residents, etc., and that the focus needed to be that our government's primary mission is to protect America, put America and Americans first. So in the 113th Congress, when we reintroduced it for the fourth time, we got Congressman Walter Jones, who represents the 3rd District of North Carolina, it's my congressman, to rename the bill. It is the same bill that we've introduced in the past 5 Congresses, with one exception, and I can't recall now if it was the 3rd or the 4th time that we made a slight modification to clarify what we meant by crimes. Because one of the things that we've heard through the years that has been effective for the other side is that we didn't need to be punishing and demonizing folks because they got a speeding ticket. I know, and Dawn, living out in Southern California, has certainly heard a lot about alleged abuses of people for driving while brown in reference to the Hispanic population. Folks like Sheriff Joe Arpaio, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, has certainly been beat up. In fact, anybody that was participating in things like the Secure Communities program or the 287G program were vilified and demonized because they were just picking on people because they had a parking lot out, or small minor offenses. It's always been our position at our coalition and at Patriot Coalition that attrition through enforcement works, and that what we don't need comprehensive immigration reform, unless what you mean by that is that we need comprehensive immigration enforcement. That there are plenty of laws on the books already if we would secure our borders and ports of entry and enforce in the interior existing immigration laws. That before we get around to tinkering on reforming our immigration policies and laws, we ought to try enforcing the ones we have now, because some of them have been such as that they've destroyed. As the 287G program was very effective at reducing criminal alien activity. This bill is not an immigration bill. It is not a border security bill. This bill is a transparency bill. I want to share a couple of emails with you to give you a little history of this bill. Back in 2006, 9 years ago, one of our partners at Fire Coalition, Mr. Peter Wagner from Colorado, who's the author of The Dark Side of Illegal Immigration, was doing his research to try and wrap his mind around just how bad of a criminal alien crime problem do we have. And he has done some extremely detailed and meticulous research. But when it came to finding just how bad is this problem, are the pro-border security limited immigration folks, are they exaggerating, overblowing this? And like ourselves, in fact, when I joined Fire Coalition in 2006, one of the first things I noticed on the website, on the parent website, let me pull it up real quick just to show you where you can find it. On the firecoalition.com, on the homepage, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a statistic, a little counter over here to the left. It says since 9/11, 123,200 Americans have been killed by illegal aliens. Haven't heard too much about that. Well, where does that number come from? And this is directly related to this bill. So just to give you the full history of the Jamiel Shaw II Memorial Act of 2015, it actually started probably in 2003, 2004. INS agent Mike Cutler, career INS agent, was testifying before Congress, and Congressman Steve King from Iowa had asked Mr. Cutler to clarify a statement that he had made about how bad this problem was. And Mr. Cutler said that we are losing people on American soil at the hands of foreign nationals, illegal aliens, in multiples of 9/11. We lost right at 3,000 people died in the attacks of 9/11, 2001. And when Mr. Cutler told Steve King this, Congressman King, at this hearing, that it was in multiples of 9/11 every year, that got Congressman Steve King thinking. And he went and started doing some research of his own. And in 2005, he commissioned a GAO study to try and find out. But what Congressman King found out 10 years ago, the same year that they put out, that the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration put out the Line in the Sand report, the Congressman King commissioned a GAO study, Government Accountability Office study, and to try and come up with a number to see how bad is this problem. And they had to interpolate based on real data of foreign nationals that had been charged, tried, and convicted, that were in our criminal justice system or in prison. And story short, what this GAO study suggested, and I have to say suggested, because they had to interpolate, because there is no tracking of criminal alien activity by the United States government. So in Steve King's report, the 2005 GAO study, what they came up with is that we're losing, on average, 25 people a day. And this isn't quite exactly accurate. We need to change that. That it's not only Americans that are being killed on American soil by criminal aliens. It's also permanent residents. It's other illegal aliens. It's tourists, people here on a visa from other countries. But we are losing 25 people a day, on average, every day on American soil at the hands of criminal aliens. About a dozen of those deaths are drunk driving deaths. That, but for the fact that the illegal alien was driving drunk, the person would not have died. 8 to 9 homicides, murders a day, and 3 to 4 homicides that fell into the negligent homicide category, accidental deaths that were caused by foreign nationals. So on average, 25 a day since the attacks of 9/11. So if anybody wants to balk at this figure, that since the attacks of 9/11, 123,200 people as of today, because this is updated every day, have died at the hands of illegal alien invaders or criminal aliens, then they should support this bill, because that's what H.R. 1041 does. Now, getting back to Mr. Wagner, in his research in 2006, 2007, and I think he actually may have started it in 2005, but by January 2007, he had cut through the wheat and the chaff and the bureaucracy and the red tape and found that if between whether he was talking to Immigration and Naturalization or ICE or DHS, he talked to a little bit of everybody. And he got led to the Justice Department and the FBI, that if it was anybody's job to track illegal alien crime, that it would be the Justice Department and the FBI. Now, I had seen these before, and if you look at the dates, you'll see 2011 dates. But just for the legitimacy's sake, you'll see this particular one from the FBI Communications Unit is dated February 15th, 2007, and this is one of their responses to Mr. Wagner's inquiry to try and find out, and like I said, there are several of these emails, and I'm not going to go through them all, but we have the validation in writing from the FBI itself that the way Mr. Wagner summed this up when we approached members of Congress about this in 2008, to sum it up was, it is the FBI, it would be the FBI's responsibility to track and provide the statistics on criminal aliens, but that they can't. What governs the crime reporting in this country is called the Uniform Crime Reporting Act, UCR for short. And the summation was when Mr. Wagner is talking to the FBI as to why they are not tracking illegal alien crime, the short answer was because Congress hasn't told us to. The first time I heard that roll off his tongue, it made me livid. That they were just being smartasses, pardon my English, but they were being honest. The FBI was telling the truth. The Uniform Crime Reporting Act dictates what the requirements are for crime reporting. Crime reporting is required by both federal law enforcement agencies and state and local law enforcement agencies in cities and towns, or cities and municipalities that are over certain population levels. If they receive any funding from the federal government to help them in their law enforcement duties, they are required, as part of it, one of those strings attached to that grant money that's coming from DHS or from the federal government, and now all of it's kind of funneled through, most of it's funneled through DHS. Every month, they have to provide a report to the FBI of a certain group of crimes, and these are violent crimes: murders, homicides, rape, robbery, not traffic tickets, but violent crimes, felonies. So we approached, so not only does it not, well, what's missing from that report, and it would be FBI crime, UCR crime report table 4, is where this information would be published. What's missing from that is nationality and legal status. The current Uniform Crime Reporting statistics makes no differentiation between crimes, violent crimes and murders committed by U.S. citizens, foreign nationals who are here legally, or foreign nationals who are here illegally. Now, in the interest of transparency, and in order to ascertain where we need to apply manpower and resources to deal with criminal alien activity, it was doing nobody any good to beat up the FBI. They were following the letter of the law. We needed to amend and need to amend the Uniform Crime Reporting Act. So we approached several members of Congress, and actually the very first one we had a meeting with and now I want to say this was probably in March of 2008, was Congressman Jones. And he agreed to sponsor the bill. Our next meeting was with Congressman Tom Tancredo, who founded and was chairman of the House Immigration Reform Caucus in 2008. And he said, if Walter will introduce the bill, I'll co-sponsor it. So that's how this bill started. And in 2008, we had a Republican president. We had a Democrat-controlled House and Senate. Republicans did not get back control of the gavels in the House of Representatives until after the 2010 election, so it would have been in 2011. So the first two times we had this bill introduced, we had, well, definitely the first one, we had a Republican president. The second time it was introduced, well, 2 weeks after it was introduced, we had a Democrat president. Still had Democrat-controlled House and Senate. We could not get a hearing for this bill with Democrats in control of the House of Representatives, and we were pretty sure the president would probably veto it anyway. Or even if we got it through the House, it was probably fall on deaf ears in the Senate. But we kept hammering away to get it introduced and to attempt to get hearings for it. So what? And one of the things that we heard from even the sponsors, and you can go back, you can click on these links, and here is the actual link, and I'll paste it in the chat to this document, so you can download it yourself. Yeah, it's in there. But if you open up this PDF, you can click on each of these and pull up on Congress.gov, or what we used to call Thomas, and see who the bill sponsors were. And we heard this from the Republicans that, well, if you'll help us get back in the leadership, in the majority, get control of the House, get control of the gavels, we'll hold hearings on this. It'll happen. Well, what happened in 2010? We now have a Democrat president, and the Republicans got control of both the House and the Senate. So we rolled it out again in October 2011. Still no hearing. So when the 2013, we now have had a split Congress. Republicans had control of the House, but Democrats still had control of the Senate. So there was not a lot of interest or excitement from the Republicans, because they knew Harry Reid, even if they got it through the House, that Harry Reid still wasn't going to address this issue. So we didn't get a lot of movement in the 113th Congress on this bill. Well, here we are in 2015, 114th Congress. We still have a Democrat president, but Republicans now have control of both the House and the Senate. This is, like I said, this is not an immigration bill. It is not a border security bill. It is merely a transparency bill. That's the broad overview of the history of this bill that is nothing more than a reporting bill. I'm going to show you the bill, the current version, H.R. 1041, and you can see for yourself. It's only 4 pages long. I'm going to go through it real quick here. There's a short title. So we had it renamed in the last Congress, and again in this one, after a victim. And it's a real simple bill. Section 2, payments by the Department of Homeland Security, contingent on state immigration reporting. The state or any political subdivision thereof may not receive funds under any program or activity administered by the DHS, unless for each person that's arrested, charged with a crime, convicted of a crime, or incarcerated after being convicted of a crime by the state or any political subdivision thereof, and that's cities, towns, counties. If they don't compile the statistics on that person, such as the immigration status and the country of origin, the crime associated with the arrest, charge, conviction, incarceration, etc., and they have to report that on a monthly basis to the FBI, and they have to certify compliance with paragraphs 1 and 2 of the, and paragraphs 1 and 2 are this paragraph 1 and this paragraph 2, so what was right above it. They will lose the funding that they're getting from any program that's overseen by Homeland Security. Well, how are they going to gather this information about to verify the immigration status and the country of origin of the people that they have arrested, charged with a crime, convicted, or incarcerated? They're going to have to communicate with Immigration Customs Enforcement, with INS, or ICE. So Section 2 addresses what the state and local law enforcement has to do. And it has an effective date at the beginning of the next fiscal year. And if you go back and look at the previous versions, regardless of what time of the year we got the bill introduced, the effective date was at the beginning of the next fiscal year. Otherwise, you would be requiring all these law enforcement agencies to go back through their records from up to maybe a year or two to identify people that may be long gone. Section 3 is essentially the same thing except for federal agencies and departments. And it's not just DHS. It's any federal agency. Department of Interior, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives has to do the exact same thing that the state and local law enforcement agencies have to do. So I won't micro-read that to you. It's simple. Section 4 requires the FBI to annually publish all these statistics as a separate data collection of the Uniform Crime Reports issued by the FBI, and that would be Table 4 of the Uniform Crime Report. Section 5 is the modification I told you we made, because as we were seeking sponsors in one of the earlier versions, one of the congressmen raised a concern about what kind of crimes are we talking about. Jaywalking, speeding, no. Parking tickets, no. We're talking about those violent crimes that you'll find on Table 4 of the Uniform Crime Report. This is the code and the title of the U.S. Code, federal statute that requires that table, that report. And why is that important? Why is this important? Well, if law enforcement, whether it's federal, state, or local, are going to be frugal with the taxpayers' money, they need to know where they need to allocate manpower and resources to deal with a problem. And when the Department of Homeland Security is looking at, they've got a pool of money available to give grants to state and local law enforcement agencies to help them with their efforts. They need to know where the higher concentrations are of crime, and in this specific arena, criminal alien crime, so that they need to funnel the money to where the worst of the worst problems are. The State Department needs to know from what countries the highest concentration of criminal aliens, whether they're here legally or illegally, where they come from. Now, one might suspect that the vast majority of criminal aliens in the United States come from Mexico. That's probably true, not because Mexico is an extra bad country, but because we're landlocked at our southern border. It's a proximity thing. I'm sure you've all been paying attention to what's going on with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. You've heard the rhetoric from the Director of National Intelligence and various people in the Obama administration about the potential ISIS sympathizers that are here, that they're trying to follow and track people in 49 or maybe all 50 states now. They're starting to arrest people that are associated with ISIS. Well, if you go back and look at the GAO reports, because Congressman Steve King did another one in 2011 that was a bipartisan request for this study with Congresswoman Zoe Laughlin from California, that reaffirmed the 25 a day figure that his 2005 study suggested. I don't know if this number that a little echo now. I don't know if this 123,200 number is accurate. If it's way low or if it's way high. So we need to know. Law enforcement needs to know. The State Department needs to know. This is a national security issue, a national security matter. And that was not what y'all wanted to see. Let me get this back
up here.
It's
also part of, actually, the President's executive action. On top of everything else, it's exactly what the President has called for. That he wants felons deported. It's not about families, it's about felons. So we have this unique opportunity right now where we actually are giving the President what he has asked for.
Absolutely. And I'm going to put that on the screen because on the 25th of February, the father of Jamiel Shaw II, Jamiel Shaw Sr., testified before the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee's National Security Subcommittee. That's a mouthful. And that PDF that I linked in the chat window is a direct link to this PDF that includes the formal written testimony of Mr. Shaw, which he and I both worked on. And we included direct quotes from the President. In November 2014, that's when the President gave a speech, and he says, if you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. He said he wanted to work with both parties to pass a more permanent legislative solution. Now, he caught a lot of grief, and justifiably so, for his executive amnesty effort. And his November 20th press conference was to kind of address that. And one of the things he said was, and to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer. Pass a bill. So in Mr. Shaw's testimony before the National Security Subcommittee of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, And that hearing was called specifically to address the Department of Homeland Security's policies and procedures for the apprehension, detention, and release of non-citizens unlawfully present in the United States. There's been several reports over the past several months, and this was certainly, if you haven't seen that hearing, you really ought to watch it. The Department of Homeland Security and the Obama administration has released thousands of criminal aliens that by law should have been deported right back into the United States, out on the streets. H.R. 1041 directly addresses that. If you're not familiar with the Jamiel Shaw case, you can go to jamelslaw.com. You can also go, and this is in the last page of the PDF I pasted in the chat window. If you go to the Fire Coalition blog, there's a ton of information, and we have kept. Some people are writing blogs, entries, articles every day or every week. This article has been at the top of the Fire Coalition blog for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, we've updated it. Because as far as addressing this issue, this is priority one at the Fire Coalition, is to remove the plausible deniability of both the government and the American people that they don't know how bad this problem is. And like I said, from a national security perspective, if you go back and read the Lie in the Sand reports, you'll see that 7 to 15%, I think it's like 15% of the illegal alien invaders that are coming across our southern border are in the category of OTMs, other than Mexican. And that of that percentage, about half of them, just those 7%, come from countries that hate us, or some of which are even sponsors, state sponsors of terrorism. With the rise of ISIS, in addition to securing our borders and ports of entry, when state and local law enforcement or federal law enforcement, or the criminal justice system, has foreign nationals in custody, they need to be checking with Homeland Security, with Immigration Customs Enforcement, to find out what country they're from and if they're here legally or not. Now, we don't make it a big point, so there's a carrot and a stick here in 1041. It also addresses those sanctuary cities and states that don't want to cooperate with DHS and ICE to identify the criminal aliens in their jurisdictions. So if you want to be a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state, don't expect any help from the federal government to fund your criminal alien sanctuary. Most state and local agencies will get in line to get the federal money. So we're hoping that some of the sanctuary cities, if we can get this bill passed, will give pause to the sanctuary policy and start working with DHS and ICE to identify and deport criminal aliens. Let's see. Let me get back up here. If you go to the Patriot Coalition homepage, we have the entire hearing embedded on the homepage of Mr. Shaw's testimony. And if this guy here that's fiddling with his hands all through Mr. Shaw's testimony is annoying, blame me, because that is me. If you have not seen Mr. Shaw's testimony, and there were five people testifying that day, his was the most compelling. As a result of Mr. Shaw's testimony, and again, go to patriotcoalition.org or .com will take you to the same place. And you go to either the Patriot Coalition YouTube page or Patriot Watchdog YouTube page, either one, and click on the Jamiel's Law playlist, and that's what the link takes you to, is the playlist. In addition to, I didn't say play it. Must have clicked it twice.
So we had a bunch of media the first week, especially after Mr. Shaw's testimony. But
right.
just like everything else, else in the news cycle, there may come a time when it's not hot and heavy on any producer's mind. And that's when we're going to need even more help by folks just like you, all of you, to be asking the people that we are trying to compel to co-sponsor, but your own representatives too. So far, we've managed to get some great bipartisan support, and we'd like to continue that.
Right. I've got the playlist up now. After the hearing, Jamiel and I went by Congressman Jones's office and sat down with him again, and that's what this first one is. It's about 14 minutes. No, that's the testimony. I'm sorry. Actually, it's both. This first one that says Jamiel Shaw testimony and Rep. Walter Jones includes just Jamiel's opening remarks, which is what's in the written testimony. That's in the PDF that's attached or in the chat. And after the hearing, we went and sat down with Congressman Jones. So there's about a 5 or 6 minute segment out of that is Jamiel Shaw Sr. and Congressman Jones. This one that's 225 is the entire 225, 215, 2015 is the entire hearing. This is just Jamiel's opening remarks that Congressman Ron DeSantis, the chairman of the National Security Subcommittee of House Oversight, that chaired this committee hearing, published on his YouTube channel. This one here, Follow Blast Government Policies, I believe that was Cavuto. But I have a separate one. Yeah, that was one that someone else had published. But as a result of Mr. Shaw's testimony, that afternoon he was on Cavuto. The next Saturday he was on Fox and Friends, and then what was that last Wednesday? He was on Bill O'Reilly again. If you missed his interviews on O'Reilly, Cavuto, or Fox and Friends, and he's done them with others, but these are the ones that we captured and we published. Strongly suggest you to watch them. Let's see. Going back to On the Patriot Coalition site, I know some of you heard me say this before, Cynthia is asking, why is a bill necessary? Can't Congress just get the information as a task without having to go through legislation? No, they can't. Because there's already an existing law, and that's the Uniform Crime Reporting Act. The FBI does not have the discretion to add categories to the crime reporting or to take them away.
And we want there to be a law. I mean, really, the truth is, unless you force people to do things and create a law, they're not going to do it. And the FBI talks about how all of the information they get is done on this voluntary basis, which explains why most of the statistics are so horribly wrong.
Absolutely. On the Patriot Coalition home site, you see a gateway to Congress. And if you go there, we've got some short links to both the House and the Senate, but Congress.gov, and you can also look at GovTrack, but Congress.gov is the official site. It used to be Thomas.Library of Congress, Thomas.loc.gov. I'm waiting for that to open. So I do want to show you if you're wanting to share this or see if your member of Congress, your congressman or congresswoman, is a co-sponsor. Of course, the Library of Congress site is slow opening up.
We also have a list that we're going to put up at the website of several specific Congress people that we're targeting to get to co-sponsor this based on a number of things. Based on the issues that they support, based on their willingness and eagerness for transparency, all kinds of things. So we hope you'll help us in reaching out to those representatives as well.
Right. So if you go to Congress.gov, type in HR 1041, go search, and then click on HR 1041. If you want the text, the actual PDF, there's a tab there. Let's see what actions, where it's at. But if you want to see co-sponsors, to see if your member is a co-sponsor, click on that. Now, the day of the hearing, we just got the actual bill number that morning. So the text of the bill, even though it was up on Congress.gov, the placeholder and a summary, the actual text of the bill wasn't available until the middle of last week. I think it was last Wednesday. We've had commitments from various other members of Congress that Jamiel and I met with while we were in D.C. To sponsor the bill or to consider sponsoring the bill once they could actually read the bill. But we picked up 4 co-sponsors within either Thursday or Friday, the week of the hearing, and the hearing was on Wednesday, I think. But actually between Wednesday and Thursday. Congressman Lynch, just to point this out, now these are the co-sponsors, so there's really 5 sponsors, Congressman Jones and 4 co-sponsors. And of the co-sponsors, there are 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. So this is a bipartisan or nonpartisan effort. But Congressman Lynch is the ranking member on the National Security Subcommittee of the House Oversight Committee that held the hearing that Mr. Shaw testified at. Mr. Lynch, Democrat, signed on to co-sponsor this bill during the hearing. Mr. DeSantis, Republican chairman, I firmly believe will also be co-sponsoring the bill. And that is our goal, but we've got a lot of coals in the fire besides this bill. We haven't reached out to Mr. DeSantis to let him know. Text is up there, and if you watch the interview with Jamiel and Congressman Jones, you'll see I included in that PDF the colleague letter that Congressman Jones had prepared in the last Congress, and we just updated it for this one. But in the video interview with Mr. Shaw and Congressman Jones, he's adding another page to the colleague letter, and it comes from the information packet that we put together in the last Congress. And that takes a little bit of time to get the formal colleague letter that Congressman Jones will be sending to all the members of the House. What we need help with is if one of these folks here is not your congressman, you need to get on the phone with them. I discourage people from using the web forms. Pick the phone up and call their office on Capitol Hill. Ask to speak with the LA that handles their immigration and or national security matters, and poke them in the chest about, they'll be respectful, why they are sponsoring or encourage them to sponsor H.R. 1041 and to help us get hearing. There are 2 committees, and these are the same 2 committees this bill's been sent to, now 5 Congresses, that thus far Speaker Pelosi and Speaker Boehner have applied the appropriate pressure to the chairs of Homeland Security and Judiciary Committees, such that we didn't get a hearing, let alone a vote. This bill satisfies what President Obama says he wants to do, needs to be done. He told Congress, you don't like what I'm doing? Send me a bill. This is a bill, and it's a short bill, and it's a cheap bill. It's not going to cost the taxpayer a bunch of money. It's not going to create a whole new big bureaucracy.
Well, there's a method to our madness as well. I mean,
yes,
right now, especially if you had the utter pleasure of watching Hillary Clinton discuss her lack of transparency issues. Right now, there are a lot of folks in Congress that all you have to do is mention the idea of trying to get some issue to be more transparent, and they're going to be very game for it. So, we recognize that, and this is totally one of those issues that would be a game changer. I mean, the fact is that a lot of policy is made based on studies and statistics and all kinds of information. We all know that. If you look at some of the waste government does, it's for studying groundhogs and mice and doing things by rivers or something. What was the thing Pelosi had to save some rat? Anyway, so it would be a huge game changer. And it's not just even about those that are, quote unquote, coming over the border from Mexico. We know for a fact, based on what we're hearing from Border Patrol and even DHS, that they're finding prayer rugs, they're finding things written in Arabic in places that are used by coyotes. So, at this time in our country, the fact that we don't know who's here and the crimes they're committing is just stupid. I mean, it's really, the first time I heard about this in '09, I was just shocked that this seemed like a really simple thing. And don't you all just assume we're already doing this? You think about people who are overstaying their visas, people that have come in for one reason and haven't left or stay for another. They just busted in here in Southern California a big fraudulent ring on what do they call that, tourism. So
Right.
we get that immigration is a huge issue. There is no silver bullet. There's not even really ever been any quote unquote comprehensive reform that's ever been looked at. Even what they tried to do in '09 was flawed in so many areas. So, we're looking to change a small part of something that could have really huge consequences later.
Absolutely. And to go back to something I referenced earlier, I mentioned a line in the Sand Report that was from 10 years ago. Now let's scroll down so you can see who the chairman of that was. Michael McCall from Texas. Congressman McCall is now the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, one of the two committees that this bill, 1041, is sitting in, waiting for a hearing.
Well, but people have to also know there no longer exists an immigration reform caucus. There isn't one. What existed even in the last Congress had all of 5 people, and trust me when I say they weren't the 5 most conservative people on the planet. So immigration is not something Congress or the Senate want to take up at all. I mean, you can tell, by their recent activity, they are, even dragging them to it. They're not happy about it. But so this is one of those small things that really, we would love to see happen and beat them at their own game, as it were. The other part of this that doesn't get talked about, and I know for those of you that work in immigration reform, you get this, but, there's a lot of talk about, bringing people out of the shadows and all this, and that's true. What doesn't get talked about are how victimized the communities where illegals tend to go. If you're, say you're a Middle Eastern, here illegally, overstayed your visa, whatever it is, you're not going to go to Hollywood to hide. You're going to go to Detroit or wherever a large Muslim community is. If you're Hispanic, you're not hanging out in Beverly Hills. You're hanging out in communities where you can blend in. Those are the communities that are being victimized because there's so much crime that goes unreported. They're afraid of retaliation. They're being threatened by cartels, you name it. And so if, Congress really wanted to do something about this, and if we really wanted to take the president at his word, we would help those communities.
Absolutely. And Dawn had mentioned the patches found along the border. That's what I was scrolling through was the line in the Sand Report, because here are a couple of them, and they're not directly related to Al-Qaeda, and you read the report. But this one is a patch of a plane heading toward the World Trade Center. This was a ad hoc patch. These are from 2004. This is from 11 years ago. So we've had Al-Qaeda and radical Islamic jihadist sympathetic criminal aliens coming across our southern borders, coming here on visas through the visa waiver program for a long time. Congress recognized this with their own study in 2005, 10 years ago. Chairman of that committee If anybody understands this, it's Chairman McCall, who's still a chairman, except now he's chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. I mentioned two GAO studies commissioned by Congressman Steve King. And if you go to the Fire Coalition blog and you scroll down, I'm pretty sure that I've got them linked in here as well. I know they're in one of these. If anybody wants them, I've got them both. Actually, I think they're in this one right here where it says Jamiel Shaw Info Pack. I'm pretty sure we have a link to them there. I'm waiting for that to open up. Our General Counsel, Richard Fry, was not able to be with us tonight because he had a radio interview to do somewhere else. Councilor Fry and I went to Congress November before last and hand-delivered this information packet to every Republican office in both the House and the Senate. Well, it's still waiting to open, and this was the bill number in the last Congress.
But hopefully you guys also understand, too, though, because I had to say this to a few folks today, Jeff, that really you have to recognize the fact that we don't vote in the top 1% of Mensa. And no offense to those congresspeople who really are smart, you can't possibly keep track of everything and every issue, and that's why they have staff. And where we can, where we know staff will give that information out because it makes it just a teeny bit easier. But really, we want to be the first people giving folks information. And don't expect that they already know about this. Don't expect that this is anywhere on their radar. And that's not to say they're good, bad, indifferent. It just means it's not an issue that they're really apprised of. And so we want to be the ones that let them know about it. And better yet, give them every reason in the world to sponsor this and to see that we get the hearings and we see that this gets passed.
Absolutely. This was from 113th. Actually, this was from 4 years ago. I think when we actually did this one. It was from, we prepared this one for a press conference we did in November of 2011, which was the 25th anniversary of the Reagan amnesty. So this number is 68,431. That's how many people we've lost in war casualties from 4 years ago, because it's a little higher now because of what's happened since then. But for the past 50 years, going back to the Bay of Pigs, and this includes the entirety of Vietnam, the invasion of Grenada, the Marine barracks bombing, the Gulf War, which I was in, the attacks of 9/11, every terrorist attack, embassy bombing, everything. For the past 50 years, we are now approaching twice that many people killed on U.S. soil by criminal alien invaders just since 9/11.
Well,
more than we've lost in the wars over the past 50 years.
So I was interested last year to see, everybody reads things in their paper, or if you read your news online or hear it, at least occasionally, that, you know, an accident has happened or a crime has been committed or drunk driving incident has happened. More often than not anymore, press won't release ethnicity of people, which is interesting in itself. But last year I decided to put up a Google alert to send me anytime the words killed by undocumented alien or immigrant, alien, or several of these other words used vernacular. And I'm getting dozens of these a day. And these are just the ones that are getting reported in some sort of news where ethnicity is even talked about from all over the country. So, I mean, it just goes to show that this isn't kind of an occasional thing. It wasn't like, so the anniversary, unfortunately, of Jamiel Shaw's son's death was just last Monday. So it's not as if that was the last time this happened. And if there's nothing else that you guys watch, if you could watch the opening remarks that Mr. Shaw has where he's talking about his son, not that I think we have to compel you guys to work on this, because obviously this matters to you. You wouldn't be here listening to Jeff and I drone on about it, but nothing shakes you to your core than to hear a father talk about the life of this precious son that he had, who really, I got to say, one of the things that has always angered me about the issue of Jamiel's son has been, we have heard the president stand up on at least two occasions now to say that if he had a son, he would be like Trayvon Martin. If he had a son, he'd be like Michael Brown. Well, frankly, if you're going to stand up there, Mr. President, what you should be saying is, if I had a son, he would have been like Jamiel Shaw, because Jamiel Shaw was a kid who was doing all the right stuff, was being looked at for both Rutgers and Stanford universities. He was a star athlete, never in trouble, not involved in gangs, good grades, very strict parents. And 3 doors down from where he lived.
Never arrested.
Never arrested. 3 doors down from where he lived, so close that his father could hear the gunshots when he was killed, that the illegal, who hadn't been out of jail 24 hours after, by the way, his third gun charge, assassinated his son, and it wasn't enough to shoot him in the back. He turned him around, shot him through his hand into his head. Now, I don't care who this happens to. This is just this shouldn't happen. What has happened to the Shaw family since and how they were treated, because unfortunately they live in L.A., Special Order 40 city, sanctuary city. And they have been treated abysmally by the black community, by other leaders within the county, within the city. The fact that they are courageous enough, every Congress, to stand by this and put themselves out there to try to have one positive thing come out of this. Even if that was the only reason any of us were doing it, it would still be good enough.
Yes. We'll let this out of the bag. We have so much going on right now that we cannot do the Nation on Fire shows every week and do them justice, because it cuts into the time it takes us on a whole host of other things that we're working on with either members of Congress or state legislators or local groups across the country, because it's hot and heavy legislative resolution season. But we wanted to focus tonight on the bill itself. We will be doing a Nation on Fire next Tuesday night, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. And our special guest next Tuesday night will be Mr. Jamiel Shaw, Sr. So if you haven't heard him tell his story or his family's story, you can hear it yourself directly out of his mouth on Nation on Fire next Tuesday night. And I'm going to wrap up the formal part of this If let me see. That's not the window I'm looking for either. Got too many windows. There we go. Go to Congress.gov, search for HR 1041, check and see if your congressman, and some of this is for the folks that are going to be watching this later. So this bill's going to be out there for the next 2 years unless we get it passed before then. If you're a member of Congress is not a sponsor, send them the video of tonight's show. Send them the videos of Mr. Shaw's opening remarks in his testimony at the hearing, which is in the Patriot Coalition and Patriot Watchdog YouTube channels under the Jamiel's Law playlist, and stay on them about it. This is a transparency bill, not an immigration bill. It is a national security bill, not a border security bill. National security. Go to the Fire Coalition blog, something I had up here a second ago, and I've pasted into the chat the direct links to the 2 GAO studies that I'd referenced. One last comment about that second report. You know, the Boston bomber trial is going on right now. If you look at the 2011 GAO study, you will find, and it's like 40, 50 pages long. It's a tough read, but it's a good read. And as far as profiling goes, necessary profiling, not racial profiling or bigoted profiling, you will find in the 2011 GAO studies statistics that pretty much identify people like the Sonora brothers. So there is a wealth of information that's just been gleaned over the past decade that Congress is fully aware we've got a serious problem.
And yet Southern poverty puts us all on the terrorist watch.
Yeah. I haven't read anything they've written about us lately, but they did say at one point, I think it was in 2011, that our coalition was the largest nativist extremist group in the country. They don't care too much for Patriot Coalition either.
Well, they put Ben Carson on their list, so I guess we're in good company.
Yeah. Well, it's already in good company with some of a lot of the best folks we work with. Let me get back to wrap up the formal part of this so we can open it up if anybody's got any questions for us. We showed you, Dawn went over this at the front end of the show. And if you go to patriotcoalition.com, we have direct links to our project sites in the left-hand sidebar for every project we have at Patriot Coalition and Fire Coalition. And these are direct links to and also to our Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts and YouTube accounts, all there in the left-hand sidebar. And there's a ton of information on both the Patriot Coalition and Fire Coalition home pages. If you'd like to contact myself or our general counsel or my gracious co-host, Ms. Wildman, who's our deputy director of both Fire and Patriot Coalition and our national political director, and she's got a long title. We got to shorten that. Our email addresses are on the screen: Jeff at, Richard at, or Dawn at patriotcoalition.com. And remember that defending life and liberty is the pursuit of happiness. Help us get 1041 hearings. Help us get 1041 a vote. If you can afford to help, we're all volunteers. None of us are getting paid. If you can afford to help Patriot Coalition or Fire Coalition, we would appreciate your donations. And there's a donate button on the homepage at both sites. Thank you. God bless. Join us next week for for Nation on Fire. We will have Mr. Jamiel Shaw Sr. himself as our guest.